Toulouse is going to be one of the cities that hosts the Rugby World Cup, and it's coming here in September. We've got some matches. Let's go and have a look at what the matches are.
So these are the great games that are going to be happening in September. Yeah, September, October here. So that's what's going to be happening. But I want to know, Chris, what about the history of Toulouse? What happened in the past?
Well, it's funny you should say that, because in fact one of the ways of finding out about a city or a town's past is by looking at the road names. And I think we can go and have a look in the city, in the old city, at some of the road names to find out what they used to do here, because today Toulouse is aeronautics and quite high tech. Obviously rugby's huge here as well, and we're going to have a look and see what is happening, or what was happening in the past. But first of all, let's go and have a look at Mr. Applehead. Is Mr. Applehead. It's a sculpture by a sculptor from Toulouse called James Colonna. It was done in 2019, and I think it's saying something about, you know, our consumer society. Maybe it has something to say about Apple, etc. But that's Mr. Applehead, quite famous here. There's a couple of his sculptures around the town, but this one is in Allée Jean Jaurès. Jean Jaurès, do you have something to say about him?
Well, I do actually. Jean Jaurès was a very, very famous person, a politician who was actually assassinated, I'm going to guess, I think just before the First World War, like 1914, just before the war. And he was a pacifist, if I remember. And somebody shot him, of course, when he was giving a speech. And I believe he actually lived in Toulouse.
Well, we can find out where he lived.
Let's
go and have a look at some of these old places, these old place names. We're going to go to the old town of Toulouse. I mean, most of it's old town anyway, but we're going to go to the old town and we're going to see if we can find out what was happening here in the past, before Airbus and aeronautics, etc. And we're going to find out this by looking at street names. Let's go. So there you go. Jean Jaurès, born in 1859, died in 1914. East Class Wilson, named after Woodrow Wilson, the American president during the First World War. So there you go, Woodrow Wilson, Thomas Woodrow Wilson, known as Woodrow Wilson, president of the USA, born 1956, died 1924. We're going to go to the old town. Up here is the donjon, and we're going to go down that road down there and see what's around. Rue du Tour, that's a bit of history. Tell us about Rue du Tour.
Well, as far as I know, this is not a job actually, tour. It means bull in the old...
Like tourists?
Yes, in the old Occitane language. And what happened was, it's a bit of a gruesome story, but there was, I think it was the Archbishop, I'm going to say, of Toulouse, and he was dragged through the streets, this street, by a bull.
Yeah, he was tied to the tail, wasn't he?
Tied to the tail. Oh well, yeah. And he ended up in the by the railway station.
Matabio.
Absolutely.
Which, like Matador.
That's right.
Bio.
That's right.
Bull.
That's right. So it is a very historical town, as you can see here. This happened in 250 BC.
BCE, yes.
So a very long time ago.
Absolutely.
It's not part of our jobs theme, but it's certainly a big historical place in Toulouse.
In fact, the bull, first of all, it was going to be used for a pagan sacrifice.
Oh.
And then they grabbed the bull and tied him to the tail and obviously whacked the bull.
I think he was dead at the time.
He was dead afterwards, sure.
Certainly.
And his name was Saturnin.
Yes, that's right, and it's all here.
And there's a basilic,
yes,
one of the biggest basilics in Europe, made from brick, which is called Saint-Sernin.
Yes.
So they've cut the name down to Saint-Sernin.
Yes, and in fact it is a UNESCO World Heritage Site.
Like lots, I mean, just behind you, Place de Capitole,
yeah,
World
beautiful.
Heritage. And there you go, there's a market today. There's all sorts of stuff here. Really nice in the summer, or even now. You can see it's Rue des Lois, is the street of law, and afterwards it's Carrière de las Leis, and this is in Occitane. Now Occitane is not a dead language, there are still people that speak it, maybe a bit like Welsh was in the 70s, but it is coming back, and it's also used in schools in bilingual classes, so people still learn it, and it's very close to Spanish, Latin, etc. There you go. And this is the Grand Balcon Hotel. This is where some of the pioneers of the Aéropostale, which you will see in our upcoming video about aeronautics in Toulouse, people such as Mermoz and Antoine de Saint-Exupéry, who wrote The Petit Prince, The Little Prince, they stayed here. The rooms are still there, and people want to go to these rooms to stay in them. This is called Rue des Pargaminières. As you can see with the blue sign up there, it's part of the route of Saint-Jacques de Compostelle. Saint-Jacques is St. James. Yeah? So, tell us about it.
Well, Chris, you put me on the spot here because I'm not sure I know.
Well, I do.
Well, let me guess, because I know it's a job. I know it's a job. I can't think of any job that would actually... was it a baker's?
No.
A butcher's?
No.
Candlestick maker?
No.
You got to help me, I don't know.
Okay. So, Rue de Pargaminières, it means the road of the parchment makers. And they used to make parchment from calf skins. And that was used for writing. Obviously not everybody would write at the time, probably for religious writing, legal writing, etc. So Pargaminière means parchment makers. So Toulouse is known as La Ville Rose, the Pink City. And it's called the Pink City because most of the buildings are made from brick. And when the sun's out, it looks absolutely fabulous. So this is Rue de la Bastide. And a bastide is a fortified town or village. And in between these big grand buildings, you can see little houses like this, which date back to God knows when, but a long time ago, all in brick. And we're coming up now to Place Saint-Pierre, St. Peter's Place. And there in the distance you can see La Grave, Hospital of La Grave. I'll tell you a little bit more about that after. This is Rue de la Valade. I think it's named after a person, and it dates to the 14th century. And in a lot of buildings, you can see little statues like this. As Susan said, it looks like the mannequin piece in Belgium, but it could be.
Oh, to stroll about.
And this is the church of Saint-Pierre de Cuisine. Susan, why do you think it's called Saint-Pierre de Cuisine?
I'm going to guess here, cuisine, cooking. So was it a place where chefs came to pray? Oh,
nope.
No, okay.
I will tell you. So, Saint-Pierre de Cuisine, as you say, it sounds like cooking because cuisine does mean kitchen in French. But in fact, what it means, it's actually an Occitane word, and cuisine means little jobs, the little sort of professions. Like here you would have had people who were maybe fishing out fish, for example, from the river, and also they would take out sand from the river to be used in building, but also to keep the river navigable. And there would have been, all along the river, just over there, we'll have a look at it in a second, there would have been lots of boats where people would take their washing to be done. And so Saint-Pierre de Cuisine was for small professions like this, you know, launderers, fishermen, etc. Because the bigger churches were actually for more of the noble people, and the poor people wouldn't go to it. So that was it. And now if we look at the top of this, you can see a weather vane. What can you see on the weather vane, Susan?
Oh, is it a cockerel?
No.
I haven't got my glasses.
It's a man with a cannon.
Oh, is it?
And why on top of a church would you have a man with a cannon?
Is it a protection?
No. In fact, this was commandeered by Napoleon's troops, and it was used as a foundry for making cannonballs.
This church?
Yep. And up there, pointing to the sky, is St. Peter, Saint-Pierre. There you go.
I think this is called the Canal de Brienne. Is that right?
It is.
And you're going to ask me what that means?
Yes.
And I've got to say, I don't really know, but I suspect it's the name of the engineer who built it.
Okay. Well, it's a canal that comes off of the Garonne and it goes to join the Canal du Midi, Canal de Deux Mers. It's called Canal de Brienne and it was named after the Archbishop Brienne. There you go.
Almost got it right.
And this is where the Canal de Brienne comes out onto the Garonne. There's La Grave there. This is the Pont Saint-Pierre, and you may just be able to see in the distance the Pont Neuf, but we'll talk about that after. As with many places in France, road names, even town names, during the Revolution they were changed. This one is now called the Quai Saint-Pierre, St. Peter's Quay, but before it was called Quai de Dion, and Susan will tell us who Dion was. Dillon.
So thanks to a quick look on Google, I can say that Dion, he was an Irish Jacobite, and he was in fact, he was at one moment, he was the Archbishop of Toulouse, but he must have left Toulouse, France during the Revolution, and he fled to London, where he died in 1806. So clearly not a friend of the Revolution. But nearby there is another a place with his name. It's the Cordillon. So they actually kept his name for that, but this had to go.
But it may have been a revolution change.
I'm sure
Like
it was. The names changed a lot during the Revolution.
And this is Rue de la Boule. Boule means ball. So it could be a 15th century disco ball maker, but in fact, it actually, like a lot of road names, it takes its name from an old inn that was here, which had a sign of a big ball.
Yes.
So this is Rue des Blanchet. Now, Susan.
Yes.
Why do they call it Rue des Blanchet?
Well, I think I'm on better ground here because it's very near the river, which means water. And I think this is where maybe washerwomen used to wash the clothes.
It is, exactly. But they didn't wash them here. In fact, they washed them in boats that were moored along the river. So the boats and the laundrette, if you like, boats, used to use the water from the river.
Yeah, sure, the river. But what did they do here then?
Well, this is where they lived, or where they had their places where they hung it out.
Where they
I imagine it was all hung out.
Okay.
We'll have a quick mention as well, because during the First World War, Second World War, sorry, there was a lot of resistance, French resistance here, and a lot of the places are named after resistance fighters. And this one, it was Lucien Lombard. And there, on the other side, is the Hôtel Dieu, which is a hospital, and the Pont Saint-Pierre. No, it's not, it's the Pont Neuf. We'll go to the Pont Neuf after. This is quite interesting, it's all around Toulouse. And in fact, it measures, it's called a level reference point. And this one is 149.5 meters. But what does that mean? Any idea, Susan?
No, I was about to ask you, from where? From the centre of Toulouse, I'm going to guess. From the bridge?
I'll tell you.
Okay, please do.
In fact, it's measured from Marseille at low tide. And it's used all over France, but you have to really look for them. But they are all around.
Well, does this mean that it's the level of the water that came here in a flood or something?
No, in fact, it's the level above sea level, measured at low tide in Marseille.
In Marseille?
Yeah, and all reference levels are measured at Marseille at low tide.
And who on earth measured that?
Well,
because this was in the days before GPS and things. It's very old.
Sure, but I mean, you know, there is a way of measuring how high you are above sea level.
Yes.
And there we are.
Well, there you
Which
go.
leads us on to another little road called Rue Étroite. Carriera Estreta. And here it is. Why would it be called Rue Étroite?
Is it narrow?
It's narrow.
It's quite narrow.
Étroite means narrow in French. Yeah. And there it was. But you can imagine that this, in fact, was probably a building at some point, probably houses at some point. So this is called Quai de la Dorade. Why is it called Dorade? Dorade is a fish, isn't it?
It is a fish.
So why is it called Quai de Dorade? Quay of the Dorade.
Because there are lots of fish here?
Nope.
Oh, because it's named after the Archbishop of Toulouse.
Nope. Over there in the distance, you can see the Basilique de la Dorade, and in fact before it was covered with gold. And doré, and it comes from
gold.
The Occitane. Dorade.
Oh wow.
Over here is the Pont Neuf. This means the new bridge.
Oh, Chris, don't say that. It's in our quiz.
How long did it take to build?
Oh, I didn't put that question in. I reckon, 100 years at least.
Oh, what a good guess. It took about 100 years. And in fact, in a lot of French cities, Paris included, the Pont Neuf, the new bridge, is actually the oldest bridge. But the real oldest bridge is over there with the scaffolding. That was the original bridge that used to come over here. And that dates back a long, long time. In fact, the old bridge, which you can see over there, which is covered in scaffolding at the moment, was only just really the first pillar of it. It dates back to the 12th century, and it would have been covered and there would have been shops on it, and so there probably would have been a toll or a tax that was taken for people crossing from Saint-Cyprien side to the side of Toulouse. Just over there, below the church, is a little place called the Pêche des Sables, which today is like a sandwich bar, cafe. It's closed today, funnily enough, but there you go. And they do drinks and stuff like that. Can you imagine what it was before, Susan?
It was where the fishermen went. It was where they kept their nets.
It's sort of not too far away, but quite far away.
Oh.
In fact, what it was before was a morgue. And because this was before refrigeration, and any body that was picked out of the Garonne River, drowned, would have been put onto a marble slab in that morgue, cafe today, and they would have been just, it would have been a bit smelly, I'd imagine, and they would just have sort of water put on them just to keep them sort of freshish until the family came and claimed the body.
Gosh, I am really surprised.
Fancy a sandwich?
I'm not at the moment. But it seems so small.
It's very small, but it goes back a little bit underneath.
Gosh.
Pêcheur de sable means fishermen of sand. Well, why do they call them fishermen of sand? It's basically, it was the people that would have gone out on little boats with shovels to get the sand off the bottom of the Garonne River to keep it navigable, but also to use in building materials, etc. And it's a really nice place to come for a coffee when it's beautiful weather like it is today. So tell us about Rue Pérolière.
Well, I know it's very, very, very old.
One of the oldest in Toulouse.
One of the oldest in Toulouse, that's for sure. I can't quite figure out the name though. I mean, I can't understand where on earth it comes from. And any ideas?
Occitane.
Yeah. Any ideas? It's a job. I don't know. I'm going to say this is where they killed animals. I don't know.
That's actually where they used to make a pérolière is somebody who makes cauldrons.
Oh.
So big cooking pots or melting pots.
Oh right, a big cooking pot.
Yep.
Wow.
Or melting pot, maybe for lead or steel or something like this.
Oh, right, so
yeah?
it wasn't for cooking.
No.
Okay.
It could have been though. There you go.
Fantastic.
One of the oldest ones. It dates back to when?
Well, it says here 1282.
So 13th century.
But according to my Google, it said 10th century.
Oh right, okay. Maybe even tandoori is written in Occitane. I don't think this dates from the 12th century. Where are we going now?
I think we're going to a place called Place de la Bourse.
Okay, let's follow it down then. And this is Place de la Bourse. What is La Bourse?
I think I can get this one. It's been stock exchange.
Yep.
So in the old days, it was a money exchanging place, traders. It's quite a nice square actually. You can just picture it happening here.
Rue Tamponnière. What is Rue Tamponnière?
I don't know. I'm going to guess. Well, is it to do with like a stamp or printing or something? I'm just guessing at that.
Yeah.
All right. Oh, good for me.
It could be. Maybe there were printers here, possibly.
Yeah.
But we're not sure.
And just according to Google, it's saying during the revolution, it had a different name, and it was the assembly of all the philosophers.
Oh wow.
So that was a change from printers to philosophers.
Fitting that we're here then.
Yes, absolutely. Good job we're here, actually, yes.
Rue La Tripière. Tripière. What is Tripière?
I don't know. I'm going to guess it's to do with tripe.
Yeah, surely. It's surely that.
I'm getting better at this.
You imagine, in summer in Toulouse, it gets very, very hot. It gets up into the 40s, high 30s in Toulouse. You imagine in the 12th, 13th, 14th, 15th century, here there was we saw earlier, the guys that made the parchment, pergamenia, which was used from skins. It was tripe, so it probably smelled bloody horrible here. There would have been as well an abattoir, I would guess. The parchment could also be made from goats, which would have been a bit cheaper than calves. Not such good quality but yeah, so I imagine it was pretty smelly around here. So this little one, Badelia, comes from an Occitane name. What's the Occitane name, Susan?
Well, I'm guessing there's the tripe, the smelly...
No, there's a name,
oh,
and it actually comes from the name for the stalls of tripe and meat that would have been sold down here. So going back to this idea of it being really, really hot, imagine what it smelled like down here. But you could buy some tripe, so always a silver lining. And this is a urinal. So at least people are not doing it in the street, but it doesn't look great, does it? It tells you how to do it there. There's a bit of a how-to. Some more statues, don't know who. And it was where the doctor of Catherine de Medici in the 16th century used to live. Just one of the little myriad of little tiny cobbled streets in Toulouse. There's loads of them. Where are we now, Susan?
Well, it looks like it's Place Roger Salengro.
Salengro.
Or Salengro.
And who was he?
Well, apparently he's he was a politician. Maybe famous, I don't know him.
Was he not a prime minister?
I don't know.
And did he not commit suicide?
I'm guessing you know. And when was this? It hasn't got his dates up there.
No. And here's a fountain.
Yeah, maybe he knows.
Called Place Roger Salengro. But
it's been several names.
It's been several names. It's been called the Place des Puits, which was the green well, and Place de la Concorde, which joined the revolution. Lots of places called Place de la Concorde. There you go. And that was how it used to look, the town of Toulouse. And here's it's a bit of a dry fountain today, but no doubt it'll start working soon. There you go. And there's some interesting buildings along here. We'll go to one which is very, very important for this region. Pierre-Paul Riquet lived here from 1660 to 1674, 14 years. He was the guy that was the engineer and the designer of the Canal du Midi, which goes from Bordeaux to the Mediterranean. And over here is another quite interesting place. And Jean Jaurès used to live here, and he was the deputy mayor of Toulouse, professor in the Faculty of Letters from 1889 to 1892, and yeah, he was socialist.
Yes.
Four bastard, and I'll tell you what that was. Four bastard, it doesn't mean four as in the number four, but it's the French word for an oven. So it probably would have been a baker's oven, which would have been a communal thing, and it was owned by a guy called Bastard. What an unfortunate name. But he did have an oven, so things did go right for him at some point. So in the past, this place would have been pretty buzzing, because there's Puits Clos, which is closed well, the Green Well, and over there is the Puits Clos. And there's a big fountain over there. It's quite a new one. It looks old, but it's quite a new one. So there would have been a bakery, given the four bastard, you know, given the fact that people didn't have ovens at the time, and when they made their bread, they used to take it to the bakery, and they would put their cassoulet or their stews into the oven. And there you go. So Rue l'Échange would have been where they would have changed money. And just over there, we're not far from Place La Bourse. And this place was completely destroyed by fire during the fire of between 1408 and 1463. How about that for a door? Rue des Tourneurs is here, and this was where people turned wood on a lathe.